Hey guys, Ark here, bringing to you Chapter 2, Episode 7 of my Learning Night Elf series. This episode we're going to be covering the Night Elf versus Human matchup, and more of just a generic Night Elf versus Human, recap. We did the scouting objectives, but I'm going to go over two games, particularly Romantic versus Remind from a recent tournament. Both games I'm going to specifically call out where the scouting objectives are used, as well as one of the games we'll watch towards the end as well. I only want to go through one of the games just because of the strategy choices the first map we'll go through. He does a little bit different of a strategy, and so I don't want to focus too much on that strategy. I want to more focus on the generic early game, and then we'll see the game play out in the second map. So in the scouting objectives, I'm going to keep it as 1x speed as we're going down. So I'll definitely touch on what both players are doing as I finish my spiel. But in the scouting objectives episode, I specifically call out that there's a couple different things that you really need to always be in mind whenever you're playing Night Elf versus Human. The first one, of course, is where is your opponent's hero? That plays into a role because currently in the matchup, they're either going to be fast expanding or teching, which is pretty straightforward. They'll either fast expand or tech. If they're teching, they're going to be looking to do damage on your base. In terms of if they're teching, they're not going to be creeping because they know that you're going to harass them while they're trying to creep level 3. And if you harass them, you can very easily do quite a bit of damage to it. So in order for them to slow you down, or in order for the human player to slow the elf down, they're going to try and go and be aggressive on the elf's base. And if they happen to bypass the elf army or get there where you're not ready for it, that means you're going to have a lot of damage likely done to wisps, potentially even lost moonwells. You're going to have a lot of damage done to you. So your first priority is to ensure that you know where the human's at. If the human is going to your base, you need to be right there with the human to make sure that you don't get caught unprepared to defend your base. If they're not going to harass you, though, let's say you're in a position where maybe the human player isn't doing what's optimal for him, that's okay, but you need to understand that you need to know where the human's at so that you can at least still harass him, still prevent his level 3, while also getting experience on your end. So just like I mentioned in the previous episode, or in the scouting objectives, number 1 priority, finding the human player. Number 2 priority, preventing level 3. And then number 3 priority is getting level 3 yourself. I don't think I actually specifically covered that in the videos, but that's ultimately what you're trying to do, is you want to get level 3 yourself, you want to deny him getting level 3, but you also want to protect your base, and so it's done in that order. So far in this game, the human player, I'm going to actually lower the sounds a little, actually I'll just turn it off. So the human player is just doing his normal creeping. This is pretty standard, a standard opening for the human player. Now on this map, they can either expand or tech. Both of them are pretty commonly done. It's pretty common for the human player to get level 2 here. On this map in particular, this is definitely something that I've favored as well, as creeping the Ogre Magi for your level 2 here. The thing that it really allows you to do is it helps you get really close to that level 3, which I guess really all the other ones would have done as well. But it gives you a big static item, and it's faster to creep than this camp. And so that's kind of the idea behind it. But ultimately, it's okay to creep this one as well. It's okay to creep the priest. You just want to get level 2 before you go and do something. And so at this point in the game, we had I kind of missed it, but I believe he detonated a wisp on the water elemental. At this point in the game, if we take a look at blue here, this is Remind, by the way, the Night Elf player. We see no vision on the map whatsoever. This wisp right here is going to be scouting out his gold mine. He already knows that there potentially was a fast expansion attempt because of this detonated wisp. So I'm going to slow it down, and then we'll unpause here. So he's scouting out that there is no Archmage or anything like there. So he's going to go this other direction. He sees the Archmage. So at this point, the Night Elf player is using his knowledge of how this matchup plays out to scout. But it's perfectly okay for you to say, okay, I need a wisp. to scout out this position. I need a wisp to scout out this position. It's perfectly okay for you to put out wisps, and I would definitely encourage you to do that. One of the reasons why you may not see it in replays of higher level players is that he knows that there's really only going to be a couple different locations. So he already scouted him out creeping this. There's only going to be 2 places he can go. One is to be creeping this camp, and this wisp was kind of scouting that out. The other one would be running through this location, or at least not necessarily this location, just so happens to be he runs into the Archmage, but he could be running into this location and creeping this priest. So that's what's going through the Night Elf player's mind right now. So I'm going to speed up, go back over. And so what we're essentially saying, I'm going to pause actually. So we got 1, 2, 3 archers, as well as a 4th one. There should be a 4th one somewhere. Maybe he's still going to build it soon. There it goes. 4th one's building. So he moves over some of his wisps outside of his base. And essentially that's basically to help ease up some of the pressure. If this human player started to try and go after wisps, he's going to separate some of his wisps so he doesn't have to worry about them. The key, though, is what you don't want to get caught into is chasing after footmen. So it does suck that he's able to just micro them away and they won't fall. But the key here is that your goal is to defend this harass and get them away from your base without losing wisps primarily. But archers are pretty important as well because that's your creeping efficiency. So if you lose out on archers, that's 16 to 18 damage per shot that you're going to miss out when you try and creep for the rest of the camp. The key here, though, is that you also want to, again, deny level 3 from your opponent. Losing wisps or losing archers is a surefire way for him to get level 3. So it's very, very important that you micro this correctly. And you can see basically what he's doing is he's focusing whatever comes closest to him, but also will immediately change targets the second those footmen or archmage get microed away. So what ends up happening is we got 1 footman here, 1 footman there, another footman there. So all these footmen ended up living, but they're low HP. So the key is that he defended the harass with as little inefficiency as possible. Basically, the second those units ran away, he started focusing a different unit, and that ultimately saved him moon juice and it saved him time. Now, from here, the human player will have to heal up before he can even do anything. So essentially what he's done here is he's bought himself quite a bit of time that he can use then to try and creep level 3 himself. And so I'm going to speed this up a little bit. And so we just see him continuing to harass. Now, instead of going to the opponent's side of the map and trying to maybe pick off some footman kills, what we're seeing him do is just back off, has his AOW in a position that he can creep level 3. And he's going to creep level 3 pretty efficiently when the human player is going to have to spend time healing up. And so ultimately, this allows him to get to level 3, which is the 3rd objective. Second objective was to deny level 3 from the opponent. He microed it well. He defended his base, lost no units, so he protected level 3. The first objective was to know where the Archmage is at, so that you did not have to defend your main base without your heroes or anything not being there. So I'm going to call it quits basically at this replay. We're going to watch another one real quick, and we'll watch this next one all the way through. It is going to be, again, Romantic versus Remind. And I want to touch again on those key aspects of the matchup. So you don't want to lose track of the Archmage or the Footmen or anything. And you want to deny level 3 and get level 3 yourself. So we're going to speed this up a little bit. We've already seen this aspect. If you're curious about the build orders, this is the 21 food Archer Tech, which we cover in the Learning Night Elf YouTube series, Chapter 1, Episode 1. But what we're going to see here, he's going to creep level 2 again. This is about the most efficient way to creep level 2 on this map. You can see him making use of Lightning Shield effectively, which we haven't really done a video on the correct, I guess, creeping of different maps. We've done AOW creeping in general, but not using Lightning Shield, so I'll probably do something about that in the future. But essentially the Footman in here coming to harass, he's immediately just going to have the Archer start pressuring it to try and push him away from his base. And he's just going to get level 2, and then kind of go snoop around, see what the opponent's doing. So this is, again, a map that's pretty common to see a fast expansion on. Ultimately, the human does not go for a fast expansion. We're going to see a tech play. And what Remind is going to do, basically, we'll just keep a vision of Remind. So he's going to go get the Circlet. From his perspective, you can see there's no scouting been done. So a large part of the scouting is basically assumed because there's only a couple different openings that human can do. This one wisp right here on this map is telling him everything he needs to know because he's scouting out the expansion. If the human is not running this way, he is assumed to not be expanding at this point in time, which means that he either is creeping, one, or running to your base. If he was creeping, he would have either ran to this creep camp, or this creep camp. This one, not very likely. The corner is not very likely either, especially because he had this one wisp to scout it, and he scouted it with his demon hunter, which means that he is possibly running towards the elf base. So that's why Remind immediately turns around and starts running back, because he knows his objective is to stay on top of the Archmage. So we're going to speed that up. He sees the Archmage running back, so he's just going to hightail it back to his base. He's got one archer out, only 2 Moonwells, so he has a very bare minimum, or 2 archers out, excuse me. He has very bare minimum to defend against this, but we'll watch how he defends this. So he gets his Demon Hunter out of position a little bit, almost could have gotten surrounded there, but ultimately didn't. And now he's in position to just start right-clicking these footmen. So again, we're going to focus on how the human micros is. So he's going to start moving back this footman, but right there. So what we saw right there is he just switched targets, targeting a different footman. He doesn't care to go for the footman kills. Ultimately, it'd be really nice if he could kill them, because that means experience and everything. But the first objective is to push the human away from your base. That will ultimately provide you time. So, of course, if you're in range, if the units are still in range, you might as well still attack them to try and kill them. But the second they are outside of range, you want to switch your targets. And so we're going to speed this up a little bit. And we're seeing him, the priority is to not lose units and not to waste time running after units. So again, moves out. He's going to still fight it, but then the second that it gets too far away, he just switches targets on his Demon Hunter. You do not want to spend time running after the unit. You want to spend time attacking to hopefully drive those units out faster. And he hasn't had to really defend his wisps at all in terms of like moving them in and out of the gold mine. Ultimately, you want to have your army you want your wisps to be behind your army, so you don't have to worry about microing the wisps. Wisps are a lot harder to micro than the archers and the Demon Hunter. So that is the key there, guys. So always focus on swapping targets. Don't waste time running after units. Otherwise, you're going to end up missing out on a lot of DPS. And so from here, I'm going to watch it a little bit faster. Kind of the core concept I want to focus on is, so he has 3 Moonwells, Hunter's Hall going into tier 2. Often I like to have a 4th Moonwell finished in most of the matchups. In this matchup in particular, it definitely, the lore timing is particularly important, as well as your hero timing. And if you get that 4th Moonwell, it does delay one of them, depending on which one you choose. And so ultimately he is not going to go for that Moonwell. He gets his hero right away, then he's going to get his lores, and then we're going to see him tech. So just want to watch it here. I am curious, actually. I'm going to pause here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 wisps total. So he's going to be rebuilding 1, I believe, at least. Actually, he might be rebuilding 2. Let's watch it. There goes 1. Lore goes down. Ordinarily, I like to do the 1 lore tech, then 2nd lore. But I believe he does 2 lores and techs in this game. So yeah, there goes the 2nd lore, and then we're just seeing him creep level 3. So again, I guess going back to what I mentioned before, again, your objective is to creep level 3 yourself and deny level 3 from the opponent. It's pretty difficult given the early game for the human player, and that's definitely the impact of those footmen. Maybe he didn't kill him, but getting them to low HP gives you, basically his early game gave him time to creep the middle pretty safely. And for the human player to creep these corners here, it's very difficult. Now Demon Hunter can creep this with the Ancients really easy, and then that gives him a free level 3 basically right here because of his early game. And so this is going to allow him to basically put a lot of pressure onto the human as he gets closer into tier 2. But we're going to see him tech once he's got these 2 lures down. and eventually a shop and another Moonwell. But the important thing is he has an early game advantage. He gets level 3 while the human player has not gotten level 3. This is a pretty big power spike for you. And so what he's ultimately going to use this time to do is transition into really targeting casters. So you can see him continuing to get aggressive, making use of that Naga. And then as these casters come out, the easiest unit for the Night Elf to kill at this point is going to be those casters. So you can see him constantly use mana burn and focus these casters here, which I'm going to speed through. So continue to right click that Sork, and again mana burn on the Sork so it prevents the slow, and eventually we're going to see him right click all these. I'm just ignoring it. He's creeping, doing other stuff, and then boom right here. So he's again mana burning, going after these casters because they are the easiest to kill, and boom, just like that, one priest goes down. Sork is going to go down as well, and then he's going to continue to just go after these casters. Every little bit helps, especially because eventually spellbreakers will be added as well, which makes it a little bit harder to defend or to get your spells off. Like it'll still rejuve and stuff like that. So having him the human player required, I can't talk. If the human player is required to continually build Sorks and priests, then there's no time for spellbreakers. So you don't even have to worry about that. And now we have the situation where he's got bears, he's got master form upgrading right now. Doesn't have an orb yet, but he's pretty strong right now, and he can take fights. And eventually he's going to start. He should probably start adding dryads here soon. And given his early game and everything, it's very easy to see how this can snowball. So I'm going to kind of speed through a lot of it. We're going to see some creeping from both players. I'm going to speed through a lot of it, by the way. So we're just seeing Remind has the advantage. He's reduced the army quite a bit from the human side, and this is going to translate into a hero level advantage as they're basically trading the map from here. And because of his earlier game, he's killed a lot of priests and everything, so his army overall is going to be better because his hero levels are better. And we see an engagement. We're getting pretty close to the end here. We got a lot of bears, a lot of dryads, and it's really key in this fight here that the hero levels is basically what makes the difference. So we got 3-2 versus 4-3, I believe. Yeah, 4-3. Really good items for both players, but the hero levels just aren't there, and that's because of how the Night Elf approached the earlier engagements. And so we're just going to see the end of this game, and anti-magic potion gets dispelled, but that doesn't ultimately matter. There's a lot of mana burn and everything available. The bears are just so strong. And Forked Lightning, level 2, of course, very strong as well. And so, ultimately, you can see how this fight is looking to start to steamroll. The keys, again, that I want to focus on is it all comes back to this early game. If the human player gets into the Night Elf base, starts going after the wisps and everything, it makes it incredibly hard for the elf player, because that means that they're gonna hit tier 2 with a lot less of a lumber income. They may have lost wisps that the human player has a potential to be level 3 at tier 2 that you can't really stall out. And so those are kind of the key aspects that really make or break how you deal with a human that's teching. Now, rifle casters, there's other things that the human player can do as well, but rifle casters are pretty common and staying that tier 2. So that match, how you play into that matchup heavily relies on defending well before you hit tier 2. So as a Night Elf player, that's something that you always have to be looking out for, and those are pretty much how you can realistically win the game, is by making sure that you don't chase after units that are outside of your reach. That's wasted time, as well as defending your wisps essentially and defending your buildings. So with that said, we're going to call this episode quits. Let me know if in the comments if I maybe overlooked some things, or if I didn't really properly communicate it. Definitely if there's things I didn't really properly explain, I do want to go back and better explain them. But we're going to probably call Night Elf vs. Human complete for at least a little while. We're going to give some love to the other matchups. So I had some requests for Night Elf Mirror, so we'll do some of that as well. And yeah, so we're just going to call this episode complete. Thank you for tuning in. Take care, guys.